Well, let's go ahead and get started. How's the volume for me speaking in this room? Is it okay? I have to wear a microphone, and I'm generally not used to doing that. I'm used to projecting, but if I do that, you're going to have a headache by the time I'm finished. I met some of you as you came in, but I'm looking forward to hearing more about your operations and how you address weed management on your farm. Today, I'd like to take the opportunity to open up my playbook to you and show you what I've been working on for post-emergent herbicides over the past 3 years, sort of lessons learned from the trenches, and what we're doing to dial in to make what seems to be a really expensive input affordable and crop appropriate. So my name's Tyler Mason. I'm a PhD candidate in the Department of Horticulture and Landscape Architecture at Colorado State University. And as I mentioned, I've been evaluating post-emergent herbicides. What was initially just one has now ballooned to 4 different options. My goal today is to communicate those options to you, their impacts and their costs. It's going to be really informal. If you have questions, just stop me, or if I'm going too fast, just stop me. So weed control, as you know, is a primary production limitation. The Organic Farming Research Foundation conducted a survey in 2005 to identify issues that farmers were having so that we could direct research. And 33% of farmers felt equipped to manage weeds adequately on their farm. Compare that to 2/3 of farmers that felt able to manage insects and 3/4 that were able to manage diseases. So clearly an opportunity for us for research to come in and to do to take some risks for you, to do some evaluations so you don't have to take those risks in your operation in an effort to address this production limitation. So farmers adopt more inputs for weed control than any of their input systems. 70% of organic farmers incorporate 5 or more system inputs for weed control. Just by a show of hands, if you're a farmer or you've been stuck weeding before, raise your hand if you've used multiple inputs to manage your weeds. A couple people. Okay, great. Some of those popular inputs, as you may already be aware, mechanical tillage, weeding by hand, believe it or not, in many high-value specialty crops, implementing crop rotations, planting cover crops, and using mulches. This picture on the bottom right here is me weeding an onion field with a crew of people, and I can tell you that weeding by hand is atrocious in every capacity, in every way. So what we can do to avoid that and with that have labor savings, I think is useful. So how do you manage weeds on your farm? This is a host of options for integrated weed management. On the top, weed biology, so understanding the system cycle, implementing cultural methods like planting cover crops, using a stale seed bed, using organic or biodegradable or plastic mulches, herbicides, although have been less popular in organic systems over the past 10 years, which is why I'm excited to share with you today about more about herbicides. Soil solarization, mechanical methods such as tillage, preventative methods, mulch, all of those system inputs integrate into a weed management plan. And it's important that you understand that it's a plan and an approach rather than a response. It's easy to get caught up in the mentality of, I have this problem, I'm going to implement this response. But as we know about organic systems, they're biologically diverse and they use different approaches. And that's important to keep in mind as we talk about the use of herbicides. A question I often get asked is, how can an herbicide be OMRI approved? So clove oil, acetic acid, Kaprat, Caprylic acid, they're all examples of OMRI approved herbicides. OMRI is the Organic Materials Review Institute that facilitates the adoption of system inputs for organic systems. And these products are allowable with restrictions. So allowable with restrictions means that you are implementing that IPM approach. So for example, before we reached for the sprayer, we had crop rotations. We planted cover crops. We used plastic mulch. We tilled. We mechanically cultivated, and we hand weeded. So that's 7 different things that we documented as part of our organic system plan, as well as using the post-emergent herbicide. So you want to document those other weed control approaches, and of course make sure that you're including your inputs on your system plan from the start for your certifier. So Caprylic caprylic acid is a post-emergent, non-selective, non-synthetic herbicide, which is a mouthful, but we'll break that down. Post-emergent means it kills green leafy tissue after it comes out of the ground. Non-selective, it doesn't care. It doesn't care whether it's a monocot or a dicot. It's a burn down herbicide. And it's non-synthetic. So it's derived from an extraction from orange peels, believe it or not. It has a desiccant mode of action. So what it touches, it burns down. It provides control of annual weeds and perennial weeds. But I want to mention that with perennial weeds, you're going to have regrowth from the terminal growing point at just below the soil surface. So if you have field bindweed that's 6 inches long and you spray it, you're going to burn down that 6-inch long bindweed. But just like you cultivated from its root reserves, it will regrow. And then we're identifying potential uses and understanding how it can be used with these crops. And I just want to include this picture here of the label of Supress herbicide EC. This was the first product that we started evaluating in 2017, and it was the first one on the market after acetic acid. Acetic acid has been around for 10 or so years, but as we know, it's only somewhat effective on weeds that are 2 inches and shorter, and it's very expensive. So we wanted to evaluate this product compared to acetic acid. So this is just a picture of the label. It's nice to see. It's described as a non-selective post-emergent foliar herbicide for use in and around all food crops. And it's effective on weeds that are 6 inches in height and shorter, but I've seen it burn down plants as tall as 9 to 12 inches. But you just have to have really good coverage. But it would be better if you could get it onto weeds that were smaller. You could apply less product. So what does a specialty crops professor do when he learns of a new organic herbicide? You go to your backyard and you see how it works, right? So we took this product outside and we applied it to curly dock on the left, dandelion in the middle, and Candida thistle on the right. And we see that it's acting as we anticipated. This was applied at the highest solution by volume, so 9% solution by volume. There are other rates that you can apply it at, but we wanted to know, well, I'll just be honest, we just wanted to see it work. We wanted to see something that works, and we do. Now that we know it works, it's time to dial in the details and understand at what rate. So this is a picture of a timeline of what we've been doing. In 2017, we started this project on sweet corn. Sweet corn because I'm a specialty crops person, so there could be, there are obviously similarities between how sweet corn grows and how agronomic corn grows. And we wanted to try it on a crop that could be grown in a big way. We wanted to make a splash. First, I'm going to walk you through the results that we saw on the sweet corn, which was our first trial, and then the onion study, which was a little bit brief, and then I'm going to conclude with showing you some observational studies of other products and how they work. So this lovely picture is weeds getting out of control on my plot on purpose. We see weeds encroaching on sweet corn, and no surprise, it's time to treat. So the first thing we went out with was acetic acid. We applied it at a very high rate. It was 200 gallons per acre, mostly because we wanted to see how much damage we could inflict to the sweet corn and to the weeds to know what would happen with yield. So we went to the extreme end to see how things would work. One day after treatment, we have pretty good burn down. What the herbicide touched, it burned down, but you can see what it didn't touch in the canopy. Those stems of the nightshade are still healthy, and it will regrow from those growing points. 2 weeks after application, we see 26% weed control. And then we wanted to compare that product to Supress, which is derived from Caprylic and Caprylic acids. And unlike acetic acid, 2 weeks after application, we see control at the level of 65%. So a better kill, a better kill. I love this picture. It's great seeing a clean crop with field bindweed just suppressed. I want to mention that we applied this to sweet corn at the 4-leaf stage and beyond. And the other thing that I want to mention is that this product works really fast, like 90 minutes. It burnt that down. It's important that you pay attention to your crop growth stage. Sweet corn below V4 would lodge and die because it was just overwhelmed by the herbicide. I took a time-lapse video of the product working over 90 minutes, and I just want to show you that. It's just a 40-second video, but I think it's kind of neat to see. So we see the leaves shrivel and curl, start to turn brown, droop. It's really unfortunate that the clouds are passing back and forth between the sun.
This is a lapse of what time?
About 90 minutes.
Does the sun in any way activate Caprylic?
Great question. It's my suspicion that hot days and high temperatures and sunny days help the product. It's not on the label. That's just a hunch that I'm coming with from experience applying pesticides, that you don't apply PGRs on a sunny day because you know you're going to burn the hell out of your plants. I applied this at 83 degrees at 3 o'clock in the afternoon to answer that question from a sweet corn perspective. So you've seen what happens over 90 minutes. After 24 hours, it's death and destruction to the weeds, which is fun to see. Leave the lights off.
Oh, I can turn the lights back on.
Are you guys okay with the lights off? Is that easier to see?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll leave them off then. Yeah.
It kind of,
Yeah.
probably going to get to this, but it
Yeah.
kind of looks like it might stunt the growth of the corn.
Great question. Let's talk about yield. We took sweet corn to yield, and we're looking at the column here, which is the number of dozens produced in an area, and we saw no significant effect on yield between it and the untreated plots. So we didn't see stunting. Great question. Now, what's exciting is we didn't see a reduction in yield. However, we saw an increase in the size of the ears compared to the untreated check. So the same number of ears, but it's a larger ear. And then on the left, we're just going to look at the percent control 2 weeks after application. Obviously, if you didn't weed it, you don't have any control. Acetic acid provided 26% control 2 weeks after application. Hand weeded at the V4, V5 stage means somebody went out one time with a stirrup hoe and hand weeded. And then caprylic acid 2 weeks after application. That was the herbicide that you saw. And then if my crew went out every week and weeded, that's what the hand weeded treatment there is. Now we're going to look at the season costs of those applications. The associated costs includes time for labor and material costs. If you didn't treat it, you don't have any costs. The most expensive is labor. If you send your crew out every week, it's going to come at a cost. And for 1,000 square feet, it was $279 for the season. That's the most expensive cost for hand labor. Then we're going to look at the herbicides. Acetic acid is $171 to treat that area. Caprylic acid is about half the price. And then hand weeded once, you're not getting good weed control, but it's not very expensive. So we saw this as encouraging. We applied a high rate of volume. We didn't see a yield reduction, and we saw good kill. But remember, I applied it at a high rate, 200 gallons per acre. We wanted to dial that back to see what control we could provide at a lower cost. And that's what the next study really focuses on. In addition to the sweet corn that you saw, organic pinto beans were growing adjacent to it, and I had extra in my backpack. So I thought, let's see how it works. So on the left, we have field bindweed, untreated, and then the open area here was treated with caprylic acid. I intentionally oversprayed the beans to see what would happen, and the beans had no issue with it. So that was encouraging. So we're seeing not just one crop, but multiple crops and applications. This is just a closer picture of the damage that you can see to the weeds and to the crop just a little bit, and the understory. So you've seen it in sweet corn. You've seen it in beans. Now we wanted to optimize our study and find a lower rate. And we started to do that with a different crop in onions. So I'm going to talk about onions next. This was a really big key takeaway. We compared organic herbicides. And in fact, I should just mention that I really shouldn't even call them organic herbicides because they weren't certified. Really, they're herbicides for organic systems. So I just want to make that distinction just so you're aware. So we applied we applied herbicides for organic systems and compared them to a conventional product. In onions, you might be familiar with goaltender. Its active ingredient is oxyfluorophane. That's the green line. And then the blue line is caprylic acid at 9% solution. We applied it at 20 gallons per acre, which is a common application rate for onions. And this was the weed control that we saw. Weeded weekly, no surprise, we have great control. Oxyfluorophane at 20 gallons per acre, we're approaching 80% control. So a conventional product for a conventional system is working at that rate. But caprylic acid at that rate is only providing 15% control. So what we learn is that you can't apply a conventional mindset of gallons per acre to an organic system. They're different, and the volumes of application, as we learn from this, need to be different. So we're going to look at a higher application rate. I know this is a little bit cumbersome to read, but I'll just feature a couple of different treatments to show you. So this treatment right here, this Eugenol, 2%, 40 gallons per acre, is Weed Slayer. Weed Slayer is a unique product. It's a two-part formulation. It's molasses and Eugenol, and Eugenol is clove oil. They come in two different containers. You have to keep them separate until it's time to apply. And then you mix those two together, and the molasses, as the company advertises, is supposed to have a semi-translocative ability, meaning that unlike the desiccants that we're seeing that touch only what they see and that burn only what they touch, the Eugenol is carried throughout the plant to some extent. I'm still evaluating that from my own perspective. I've applied it to weeds, and I'll show you a picture here in just a minute. But I was told not to apply Eugenol to onions because it would kill my onions. Guess what? It didn't. So, so we can take these. We can take this information to the bank and use it for our crops. So Eugenol at 40 gallons per acre wasn't all that effective at 20%. That's nowhere near what we need. So failure. Caprylic acid at 6% solution provided about the same control as Eugenol, almost 20%, which is not good enough. So the lower rate of 6% compared to 9% wasn't that good. Now we look at the highest application rate. We see we're getting control at the 50% level, and we see that the conventional product, goaltender, acetic acid, and caprylic acid are all comparable at that rate. So up your rate, provide better coverage of the weeds, better control. Oh, I have to mention, we also took the onions to yield. and saw no significant differences in yield. Now there were fewer colossal onions, but no difference in total overall yield. So that was encouraging. This is a table of the products that we've been evaluating. It's kind of a good summary to give you an idea of where the industry is. Supress on the left, as you know, is derived from Caprylic and Caprylic acid. Think of that as Pepsi. About a year ago, Coca-Cola came out called Homeplate. Homeplate is a similar product formulation. Weed Slayer is derived from Eugenol, which is clove oil, and horticultural vinegar is acetic acid at 20%. Another important thing to mention, there are now acetic acid application percentages that are higher than 20%. I've seen it as high as 30%, which makes me wonder if they're doing their own research and saying 46% initial kill is probably not good enough. We might want to up that. So I have seen it at 30%, but I have not tested it. They're all post-emergent. They're all non-selective. These are the crops that we've evaluated it in, and I'm happy to go more into details with you if you like. If the restricted entry interval is important to you, there are differences. From when I make an application, I have to wait a day for Supress. With Homeplate, I only have to wait 12 hours. Weed Slayer has no REI, so you can go back in the field immediately. I double checked that to make sure that that was accurate, that I wasn't missing something, and no, Eugenol has no REI. And then horticultural vinegar, it's 2 days. I have to wait 2 days before I can go back into the field. Another important thing is that these are caustic acids, so you need to take safety into account. The most dangerous product is acetic acid. So it's recommended to use personal protection equipment when you make an application. Weed Slayer and Homeplate have a caution, and Supress has a warning. And then at the bottom, I apologize, it's difficult to see, but those are the costs per acre at 80 gallons. So Supress is $415 for the product. Homeplate is $650. Weed Slayer is $385, and horticultural vinegar is $1,600. So there's a big difference in cost. So I've been talking and alluding to my observation plots and what Weed Slayer can do. I just want to show you a couple pictures. This is an untreated plot of some handsome looking weeds. And then they've been growing for 5 weeks. And now we'll compare that to Weed Slayer applied at 60 gallons per acre. So the difference is the loss of Palmer amaranth. Just a closer picture of death and destruction. You can see all the brown that occurred is stunted and killed amaranth. The field bindweed is regrowth after application. We didn't just want to evaluate these products, but we wanted to provide some information about how they could be applied. And I received a grant from the Colorado Department of Agriculture to do this research and outreach. So we purchased a shielded sprayer. Just by a show of hands, how many people have never heard of a shielded sprayer? All right, great. This will be a lot of fun. So this is a shielded sprayer. And this is it in action. And then we'll talk about how it works and what we've used it for. So inside those hoods, there's a nozzle hanging down. The nozzle is spraying water right now, and it's creating this mist fog that umbrellas around the weeds and provides good coverage. This is only about 30 seconds. So notice that it's providing pretty uniform coverage just as a sprayer. We fabricated this. We bought a small shielded sprayer, put the hoods on, but it's scale appropriate for smaller operations. The nozzles and the whole implement are sitting up high. Generally, those wheels would be sitting in a furrow, and the hoods would drop about 8 inches. And when they drop about 8 inches, they're just hovering over the top of the weeds. And what's cool is that right in the middle between the hoods is the direction of where your crop's going to go. So those hoods direct your crop through the opening, and then so they're not sprayed, and then under that you create a canopy of mist, and that kills your weeds. If this implement were lowered, which is what we did, you would see clear bands in between the rows where it did not spray. So let's look at this in a crop. So this is milo with a lot of weeds growing in it, as you can see. And the milo is being directed through the hoods, as you can tell. And then this is what it looks like after an application. You can see that the milo is in pretty good shape, and that we have a good kill of field bindweed in the middle. So the shielded sprayer in the field did what it was supposed to. So we've evaluated it in sweet corn, pinto beans, onions, and we use it as part of our organic system plan to just maintain the grounds to do this research. And because we plant on, we use plasticulture, the field bindweed grows right next to the plastic. And if you try and pull it out, as many of you may already know, you're going to create holes in your plastic. And field bindweed is exceptional at finding those holes in the plastic and growing through. So when you start hand pulling weeds, you ruin the ability of that plastic to do its job. So the interface between plastic and field edge, where there's just a narrow strip that you can't get with your cultivator, it might be a good use. Or just field edges, just things that you need to clean up on your farm. So in conclusion, you have options. You have 4 different options for post-emergent herbicides. They're non-selective, non-synthetic. They work as a desiccant mode of action, control of annual and perennial weeds. It kills your annual weeds. Your perennial weeds will regrow. So Canada thistle, field bindweed, they're going to regrow in a couple of weeks. These are all WSDA or OMRI approved for organic systems, remember, for use in and around organic systems, and that they're allowable with restrictions. And those restrictions are documenting your weed control approaches and using a diversified management plan to address those weeds. You can't reach for the sprayer first. We still have to be good stewards and implement that integrated weed management plan to take care of things. So Weed Slayer, Homeplate, Supress, and this Green Goblin is what I found for acetic acid. If you're interested in learning more about this, there's an article online that talks about our sweet corn study. It's in eOrganic. eOrganic is a free online database of webinars, resources, and articles that are free and geared towards organic growers, as is this article. So if you're interested in learning more, that's a place that you could do it. And then with that, I'd like to thank the Colorado Department of Agriculture for their support for this work, my department, the Horticulture and Landscape Architecture, and of course the people that made this happen. Now, what questions can I answer for you? Oh, thank you.
What row spacing were you on with your sweet corn?
30 inches.
Did you do any experimentation with lower rate coming in earlier to get weeds out, let the canopy help you later on?
Great question. We came in at V4, V5 with the hope that we could till, we could plant, we could do a cultivation, and then we could come in. And our goal was to do one single application right before crop canopy closure to keep the weeds out. And that works for the most part, but in reality, you'll probably need 2 applications to keep it as clean as we would like. But we're still trying to identify that crop growth stage, application percentage, and application volume that we can really dial back what we're applying and how we're applying it to make this affordable without damaging our crop. So we're still trying to figure that out.
With the, have you ever done anything instead of going 30-inch rows, squeezing that down to 22s?
That's a great question. We did 30 because it's standard.
Yeah.
You know, that's what the industry does. But there's no reason why, you know, what we're proposing with this is to take a systems approach, manage weeds from a systems approach using different management techniques. And I think that shortening to 22 inches is right on par with best management practices. And I think that's something we just need to evaluate. But it's a good suggestion. Yeah. Are there any other questions? One question I often get asked is, what about soil quality? It's a strong acid. Are there any impacts to the soil? And how I answer that is, it only kills the herbicide only kill what they touch. They don't translocate, so they're not getting into the plant and they're not translocating through the soil. And they're broken down within like a day or two from the sun. So are there impacts to soil quality? It's possible, although it would be minimal, but that's the next thing that we're going to be evaluating. And then another question I often get asked is, was there any, you see lots of happy people eating sweet corn here, is any impact to flavor or taste? So we did a sensory evaluation and there was no observable differences between any of the sweet corn treatments. Yeah.
How did it work with, did you guys apply like any other fertilizers or anything like that?
Great question. We did not tank mix or apply other things at the same time. When we did this product evaluation, I spent some time speaking with the chemical representatives who wanted to see their products work. And a couple of tips that I got was that I should acidify the water. So I evaluated these products on their own as they worked, no adjuvants, no surfactants, but we could have added a water acidifier to it, and that should increase the efficacy of the products. And then we could have added a sticker spreader like Oro Boost, which would help it cling to the leaves and provide better control. So as you do your own experimentation, consider acidifying the water and consider adding a sticker spreader. But we just wanted to be as objective as possible. This is really new research, really new information, and we didn't want to confound it with, you have to buy this product, you have to buy this product, you have to get this, and you have to do this, because that's just not where we are yet. If anybody would like to see the shielded sprayer, I brought it with me from Fort Collins. I'd be happy to show you it, or as you walk to your car, you can see it out there as well. I'll totally leave it up to you. But we're done a little bit early. I'll stick around if you guys have any questions or additional things you want to talk about. But thank you so much, and I hope you found some of this useful.